This is the Reflector Reflections podcast. My name is Annie. Join me as we journey around the world, talking with fellow human design reflectors as they experiment and navigate their unique design. Today's beautiful conversation is with Cushla. Cushla is a 2-5 reflector who resides in Christchurch, New Zealand, and is a movement specialist. She brings her love of all things movement to inspire confidence in people and help them find a love of moving their bodies. Welcome, Cushla.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We got here eventually. It's been off and on for us to get this recording and sync our schedules.
Yeah.
And Cushla, you and I, we collaborated with Elle and Violet on the Lighthouse Sanctuary, and you did a lot of the movement for that, which was amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah,
it was really so fun.
It was. So, human design, 2-5 reflector. Let's go back. How did you find human design, or human design find you?
I first discovered it through, there's a yoga teacher in Auckland, or she was in Auckland and I was there too. I used to live in Auckland, New Zealand, and she talked a lot about astrology and this thing called human design. And I had heard a few people talk about it. And then we went into a lockdown. So she had like a workshop through Zoom. And me and my friend in Christchurch were like, cool, let's attend this workshop. Let's just see what it's about. So that was my first introduction. And I just remember sitting on that Zoom call. And she, there was a lot of people on that call. There was like 30 something people. And I had no idea what any of the types were. But she was going through the chart. So we all had our own like chart up. And she was going through and talking about colors. And I just remember sitting there being like, what is she talking about? Like, I can't see any color. And I was so confused because she kept talking about like, if it's colored in, it means this. If it's not, it means this. And I'm just like, I don't know what she's talking about. Like, is she talking about those little like lines or little circles that are colored in? Because I had nothing. And I remember texting my friend in Christchurch and she was like, oh, weird, I'll send you mine. And she's actually a manifester. So once I saw hers, I was like, oh, you have heaps of things colored in. Like, why don't I? And I was like, that's what she was talking about. And I was like, oh, so I actually missed so much because the whole time I was sitting there being like, why isn't mine colored in? Something's wrong. And then I realized that's a reflector, is that we have nothing colored in.
Did you go back to her at the time and say, I don't have any defined centers? Or did you just you were too shocked to think something was wrong with your printout?
I thought I was missing something. She did say at the beginning, because there was one other person on the call that was a reflector, and she got us to kind of talk at the beginning and the end. She kind of grouped all the types together and got us to share something, but I just had no idea what was going on. I just remember her saying something about like, as reflectors, we feel a lot. And because it was lockdown, I had started teaching yoga through Zoom. And I just remember being like, yeah, I can actually like really feel the energy of the other person even through Zoom, which surprised me. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's a reflector thing. That's quite cool. But yeah, I had no idea.
And what did you do with that then? Like, did you just what did you do when you were presented with this information? What happened then?
Yeah, I did really like it because I was like, oh, like I like being a little bit different or feeling a little bit, unique. So I felt quite cool knowing that it was quite a rare type. My friend, however, really didn't like the idea that she was a manifester, and even now she still doesn't really like the idea of it. She just thinks it seems quite pushy. So I kind of was quite curious. I then introduced like my sister to it, and now she's fully done like her coaching in human design. She absolutely loves it, and now she tells me more information about it. Like, she's a great person to have because any questions I just ask her, or she'll discover something and be like, you have this gate or you have this, and
that's phenomenal that you've got that. Yeah, that you've got that in your family, and you can kind of and what a wonderful gift for her as well, for you to be that reflector that she can really learn from, because this is something that we've chatted about a lot, because we're few and far between, though we're not, but because we're few and far between, I guess when you want to learn human design and become like an analyst and a specialist, you're probably getting more of those generators coming through, or manifesting generators. You're not getting many reflectors. So for her to have you, someone she can really experiment with, what a gift.
Yeah, and she likes that she knows me as well, so she can actually, like, she's known me my whole life, so she can know me and then read up about my chart and be like, oh, okay, like there's this and this. And it's even quite interesting because me and her were really close growing up. Like, we did a lot together and it was like so fun. And now I have a sister-in-law, and it's interesting because she perceives me as being quite emotional. Like, when we're together, I always start crying, or there's like, some deep thing going on. Whereas when I'm with my sister, it's so much like fun and like playfulness. And so it's fun that my sister is now like, oh, it's because she's a reflector. She's just amplifying like what we're giving her, So it's quite interesting to see how I am even in my family, because how I show up differently for different people is really interesting too. Yeah, and that's so unintentional for me as well.
So how did your sister-in-law take that when you sort of said, oh, she's a reflector, and this is, because obviously, could you imagine you like being really fun with your sister, and that's obviously really good energy, and you're reflecting it back, and she's she's seeing this beautiful side, but then when you're getting around your sister-in-law and you're like really emotional and upset, and you're thinking, and you were just saying there that you sort of said, oh, that's because she's your sister said that's because she's a reflector. How did she take that?
I wasn't there in that conversation. It was them saying it to each other. But I mean, that sister-in-law, she is very deep, and I think when she's with me, she feels safe enough to share really deep and vulnerable things. So it's also a part of that too. Like, she's giving that to me, and then I'm like mirroring that back to her. So yeah.
And how does that feel for you to know that, like, now that you know that about yourself, when you look back through your life, how does that feel? Because we feel a lot. Like, we can't bullshit society and say that things haven't affected us like really badly or really positively. How has that affected you?
Yeah, it explains a lot in terms of schooling. Like, I found school a really challenging time for me, and it's interesting, like, reflecting back on now, because I always thought it was an intelligence thing. Like, I always thought I wasn't quite cut out for the school system, which I still think I'm not quite cut out for the school system, but it's not an intelligence thing, because I know I'm really wise, but it's more the pace. Like, I just didn't fit in with the pace of schooling, so then I was always left behind, which then didn't make me feel good. So then I would like play up, and I would be like naughty or just annoying, or just a pain in the ass to the teachers, because I didn't feel like they took the time that I needed. So yeah, school was really interesting, and now as a reflector, I can see that I just probably needed way more time than other people, like, to absorb things.
Yeah, and step out of it, because you would have been just, I always think school's quite an interesting period, and watching ourselves, I guess, going back and watching ourselves, but watching, like little reflectors and then starting school, because we're kind of in a more of a closed environment, I suppose. And then when we start school, suddenly we're around 20 to 30 other kids every day. And that's overwhelming for that. I guess we're built for it, but it's like, you think, wow, something happens there, I think, for us little reflectors when we start school.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I would like always have tutoring then, because I struggled with like maths, reading, writing, like the classics. But the tutor would always be like, she's fine, she's all good, she's got this. But then as soon as I'd go back to that school environment, I don't know if it was anxiety or what it was, but I would just shut down, and I just, it's like I lost it. But it was clearly the environment just wasn't right for me. Yeah.
And that 2-5 profile that you have as well, like, using that human design words, that second line is very introverted. It's a very hermit kind of line. Have you felt that in your life too, where you do like to kind of, be alone in your cave?
Yeah.
Or do you feel that 5 really pulls you out, where you kind of, that leader?
It's interesting. I've noticed any social situation I can like fit in so easy. Like I've never had any issue with like making friends, or like even when I lived in when I was like 17, 18, I lived in Switzerland for a year, and I didn't know the language at all, and yet made friends like so easy. So it was really it's interesting noticing that must be the 5 aspects, and the reflector, that I can really mold to like whichever group. But then I also I come from a huge family. So I've got 6 siblings, and I'm number 7. Of course, the last one's a reflector. So I'm number 7. My dad is a manifesting generator. My mom is a projector. And then everyone, like all of my siblings, are either a generator or a manifesting generator. And then there's my brother just above me, who's a projector. And then there's me, who's a reflector. And so growing up, people all the time in the house. Even when my siblings started to go to uni, we had like exchange students come and live with us. Like the house was always full. And I remember actually, I think I was like 8, and I got given a journal from a friend, or like a notebook. And I remember being like, oh, what do I do with this? Like random. And my sister saying to me like, oh, it can be like your journal. You can just write whatever you want in there, and then no one like reads it, just for you to like put down whatever you need. And when I got that, it was like game changer. Like ever since the age of 8, I've had a journal, and that is so valuable to me. And it's like, I remember being quite young because the house was so busy, and I had my own bedroom, but it still felt like anyone could just walk in. So I would actually hide in the wardrobe. Like I would sit in the wardrobe, have a little like lamp in there, shut the door, and just like write and journal in my little wardrobe space. And I made it so like cozy and like cute. And then I was known as a kid to like always sing or like love toilets, because again, that's like my alone time. Like I can shut the door on people and just like be in the toilet for as long as I want. So it's like, I guess that's the 2 in me. Like I love to just shut the door and be like, this is my time. And I guess I do definitely feel the pull of like, I feel like I can't fully shut the door on people. So then I have to hide. Like it either has to be like a toilet or a wardrobe, or I would walk down to like a park near our house and just like chill there as well. Like I love parks. So I did spend a lot of time by myself, but it felt like I couldn't really do that at home just because our home was so busy, unless I could shut the door and kind of hide.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
Crazy.
7 kids. Wow. You don't hear about that often anymore, do you? Well, I don't in my circles.
No.
And to be, blessed enough to have your own bedroom at least is that's something. And I love the fact that you're up in the cave. I remember doing that too. You climb up into the thing and just set up your little space up there. Phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, I did share a room with my brother, which is interesting now, thinking like, where'd I share a room with my brother and not my sister? And he's the projector, so it felt all good us sharing a room. Yeah, we had like bunk beds and that felt all good. But then because the older siblings went off to like uni and traveling, that's when I could have my own bedroom.
Oh, that's so good. This must have been a really interesting time. So you've got all these siblings. Do you know the rough breakdowns of their profile? Like, is there a certain type in there, or as in is there a lot of 4th lines or 2nd lines? Or
it's interesting because it's like you kind of look at I know my sister was looking at this all, so it's like it's almost like the older siblings all have kind of a similar type, and then us younger ones have like a similar type. So it's like us younger 4 all of us have, or there's a mix in there between like 2s and 5s. Even us youngest 3, we all have the 2 actually. So that's really interesting. Yeah. And then my dad and some of my older siblings have the 6. So like that leader type energy. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm.
I was just sitting here thinking and trying to sort of, feel into how that must have felt. And I'm just like, wow, that's pretty incredible to grow up like that. But as you said, when you were going to school, you didn't want to be rushed and stuff like that. So it was possibly your way of trying to escape that kind of rushing. So do you honor your authority now? Do you take a lot of time? Do you honor the Reflector manifesto?
The lunar cycle. I feel like I need to learn a little bit more about the lunar cycle. I definitely give myself time, but I don't know if I give myself the full 28 days. It kind of depends. If I have someone reach out to me and ask me, I feel like I can't give them a month to decide, but I will be like, oh, can I sit with that? When do you need to know by? Like I often do that in terms of communication with others. But in terms of my own, like, because with my own business, I'll do like events or like I'll plan women's circles and things. For those, I generally would actually probably take 28 days, if not longer, because I will more have an idea and I'll sit with it, and then it will like spark back again later on, that type of thing, or it just won't come back. So it's almost like unintentionally I kind of do it. Yeah.
I love that unintentionally do it, because when it feels good for us and we know we're in alignment, I think that's just how it works. We don't even have to force it. It just is what it is, and it just fades out or it comes back in. As you said, sparks.
Yeah.
And that just going back, that 2-5 profile, when I was, going through and really looking at all the profiles, the 2-5 always stood out to me as the most tricky. I use that word lovingly, by the way, tricky. But the constant kind of want to be on your own. I've got a lot of second lines in my house, so I kind of feel that energy. But the 5th line being constantly projected on and feeling that need to kind of like be out there. It's kind of literally a push-pull profile, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I guess
that's I didn't know much about it, to be honest. I've recently started doing like a mastermind, like a coaching type thing, and they had a human design coach come into that, and she was really curious about my 2-5 as well, and I was like, oh, I didn't know much about it. And then when she was telling me, I was like, oh, okay, I definitely do feel that for sure. Like I do constantly feel, even for on the weekend, I got invited for like this girls trip, and part of me really didn't want to go because I'm that like 2, I just want to be by myself. But then I feel bad for not going, like I feel like I have to. And then it's like I end up going and like having an awesome time. It felt really good, but then I just really need my alone time afterwards. Like I need to recharge again. So yeah, it is a tricky one, but I also feel like there's not always like the one right answer. Like I shouldn't always just be at home and in my hermit, even though that's really comfortable. I also do love still being with people and connecting with people. So yeah, it's just, I don't know.
Well, I've had a look at your chart, so I can see that, you're not supposed to, you definitely, I had a look. It was really nice. So something unique about your chart that I looked at was that you have, and we've spoken about this in Zach's Discord a couple of months ago. We've got all undefined centers, and some of us have got completely open centers, and that's generally, 1 or 2. You have 3. You have 3 completely open centers. So your spleen is completely open, your solar plexus is completely open, and so is your throat. So that puts, I guess, either I sort of look at that and go, that's actually a unique extra superpower that you have, or puts a lot of pressure on wanting to speak, wanting to feel, wanting to, have you gone down that rabbit hole with your sister yet, of those completely open centers?
I read about my throat being completely open. And I found that really interesting because when I was younger, I was really into speech and drama. And I'd always been told I'm really good at like projecting and using my voice. Like as a yoga teacher, we're quite often teaching in like huge studios, lots of people, and I can always fill the space. So it was quite interesting seeing that it's completely open because there's obviously some people that I'm amplifying to make it like big. And then it's also interesting too, because sometimes I'll be on calls with people that I don't really know, and I'll suddenly go quite red. My voice will be quite shaky. It's not super like clear. And I'm like, this is random because normally I'm pretty good, but there must be someone in there that, I don't know, maybe they're completely open too. So then I can't suddenly amplify anything. I thought it was interesting, especially at a yoga studio I taught at. There's a teacher there who has such a powerful voice. Like he is like, whoa, like power in his voice. And I think teaching there, I could really amplify that because I think everyone was kind of like, whoa, there's this little white girl coming out of nowhere that's just like, boom, powerful voice, because I can just like pick that up. So yeah, that felt really cool.
Yeah.
So I guess it depends who I'm with, and yeah.
I love that because it is, you look at that one, and I've got 6 gates to find in my throat. So I've got, there's a lot of pressure there. I mean, you've got a lot of pressure too. It's just different pressure. But I love looking at people when they've got completely open centers like this. And, you've probably got this ability to really be comfortable in silence. Because of that as well.
Yeah, I really can. I can. And it's quite nice with teaching yoga too, because like yoga is a lot about dealing with being in silence and being uncomfortable. And you can notice some teachers that just want to fill the space. Yeah. And like, I can actually feel quite powerful and actually just being silent. And then the students are kind of like, whoa, like, I feel like that has more power sometimes than just giving constant cues on people's bodies. Is just like holding in the silence. Yeah. And then they actually like really listen. And I'm like, yeah. It's quite a fun thing to play with. I feel like that open throat. I feel quite fortunate at being completely open, but I haven't really looked into the spleen and the solar plex and what that means. So, yeah.
I guess the open spleen is, I've been really looking at it in the sense of fear gates. So there's a lot of fear in that spleen, whereas I guess you probably don't know what to be afraid of. Having that completely open, you're aware of all the ways the body consciousness can show up in life. And as I was having just a quick 5 minutes at your chat, I'm just like, it's no wonder you do what you do and why you love it and why you're excelling at it, I think, because you've got these beautiful gifts that help you hold space for people really well. And the solar plexus, it's like, it just adds that extra sensitivity layer, doesn't it? Beautiful, beautiful sensitivity that Amanda and I were speaking about. Yeah, you might feel it at times, but it's like it's a beautiful gift, I suppose, to have. So for those that are listening, we're talking about, and most people would know this, but we are talking about our undefined centers, that they have no gates to find in them, so they're completely open. We've generally always got, I shouldn't say that, we don't always, some don't have any, but some have too, but it's kind of rare to see people with 3 as you have. Superpower.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm like, man, classic. No wonder my life is such a journey.
It really it's really good. We've sort of been journeying with it to, there's so much information out there, isn't there? There's just, and you don't know where to start. As you were saying, when you first found it, you're like, what does this mean? And you thought something was wrong. What's wrong with my sheets not coloured in? And finding these little tips about ourselves, I suppose, makes the journey just so much more pleasurable, because we go, I unconsciously knew that, you unconsciously have known that this is the direction of your life and what feels good for you. But to sort of have that confirmation and validation when somebody goes, that's why, this is what you're bringing because of this that I'm seeing in you. Anyway, so let's talk about what you do, I suppose, now that I'm saying all that. Can you please share with us your beautiful gifts to the world?
Yeah, I teach a lot of movement things. So I've danced pretty much my whole life, like since the age of 5. And then I studied contemporary dance in the end I started with ballet, transitioned to contemporary dance, and I studied it for 4 years. So full time. So I've got my bachelor in contemporary dance. So I've got a dance background. So I'm a dancer, choreographer. Haven't really made a work in a while, but it can always come back. I'm just waiting for when inspiration hits me, and then we'll see what happens. And so while I'm transitioning in that time, I teach yoga, typically power yoga is my love. Vinyasa, so really flowy. I'm studying Budokan yoga at the moment too. So that's martial arts mixed with yoga. So it's very powerful. It's very warrior. It's awesome. It's a lot more like circular movements. So it feels good. And then I teach Pilates as well. So my love is on the reformer, which is what the computer's balancing on at the moment is my reformer. So that's the Pilates machine. So I take private sessions with that. I also teach group classes with that as well. And I teach mat Pilates too. It's quite an easy transition. And then I lead women's circles as well. So sometimes that's not movement based at all. Sometimes it is. It's just a chance for like women to share and chat. So yeah, those are the main things that I do. I think. Yeah. I'm like, there might be more. Yeah. Who sees? Yeah. Who knows where my life is going to take me? But yeah, that's what I do.
And how have you found, like, understanding your type and doing the work that you do? Has it transitioned for you, obviously, with COVID and how it sort of shut down the world? Did your working life change that you're now allowed to kind of be you a little bit more, I suppose, to sort of like not work as hard? Or how does your working life influence who you are now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely give myself a lot of curiosity and play in my working life, I would say. I see a lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves to like go, do. And there's a lot of fear around like money, which I get. I definitely understand that, being a super broke dancer, so I get that. And now I've really shifted into just seeing it all as like energetics. And energy. So the more that I nourish my own energy, the more that I can help others, and the more that opportunities will come to me as well. Like I've just really, lockdown has kind of forced me to just soften a bit more and to really drop into like what is of value to me. What do people really need right now? I think that's the benefit of us too, is that we can really tune into what do people need. So it's like just taking my time to feel what people need, what I can offer. I guess there's that 5 as well. What's the problem that I can solve? And then going from there to solve the problem, or to offer something and give something to people. Yeah, and then just trust. Yeah, lockdown's really forced me to trust a lot in my career and what I do as well. Just trust that people will come who are meant to come, you know. Yeah. My message will reach whoever it's meant to reach. And just soften a lot more into that. And I've dropped a lot more into my values too over this time. Like now that lockdowns have kind of shifted in New Zealand and restrictions have changed, I've actually said no to a lot of places that I was like teaching before, because I want to focus more in on me and being able to play a lot more with my teaching. Like often in studios, we have to teach like a certain way to fit the brand of the studio. Whereas now I'm like, what's me, and how do I want to show up, and how do I want that to be every day? Like as a reflector, I love to really just play and honor with how I want to be in that moment without like labels and too much structure. Yeah.
I love that. I love that you just said that you can actually be you, because you can get to do it your way, because you've got that space to be able to not be pushed and pulled and especially with those
Yeah,
open
yeah,
centers. And your women's
yeah.
circles, how does that feel for you when you're in that? Have you found that I hold them as well, and I find that it's a very nourishing thing for me. It's a beautiful experience to be able to just sit back and really hold that space. But I've had a few occasions where, as you were saying before about your sister-in-law as well, where we can sometimes amplify something that people aren't prepared for. Have you had that during those vulnerable moments?
Yeah, it really depends on the group, doesn't it? Which is and often I'll do a different theme for like each circle, and I don't really announce what the theme is beforehand, but it's so interesting who comes to that circle really fits the theme. It's so interesting. And then I have had some where it's like I finish and I'm like, oh, I'm so excited, I'm so amped up, like I feel so like lifted from that experience. And then I've had other ones where it's like it was more people staying behind afterwards to like offload more onto me. I feel like, I don't know if you get that, but I can get that quite a lot. And then it can feel quite heavy. I'm just like, oh, now I've got to somehow go to sleep after absorbing all of that information, and how can I just let it go? And so it depends on the group.
It does, it really does. And you're right that sometimes it might, for most parts it's really uplifting. Being around other people's energies for most parts is really uplifting. And just in one of the recent chats that I had, we're talking about polishing our mirror, and I suppose for most parts, if we maintain that high frequency, then the entrainment happens and we pull them up to us. But sometimes, as you were saying afterwards, it's just like they really need to release. And you become their sounding board. And I guess that's us just having to just sort of like shake it off and just let it go. It's not our problem to deal with, even though we care deeply. I love that. I love the work that you're doing. It just sounds so wholesome, and it feels good for you. As I said, I kind of got this beautiful calm energy from you when we first met, and now that I've kind of seen a little bit more and had this chat with you, it's like I feel this beautiful like calmness that you are doing exactly. It's glorious to see. It makes me really excited when I just see people in alignment with who they are. So thank you for that. Do you want to share your business stuff? Your website?
Yeah, I can do.
Your Instagram, if people want to reach out to you and talk to you. Obviously, are you predominantly in person or online?
Mainly in person at the moment. I've again, it's like that 28-day thing. I keep getting like, oh, I could do online, but I'm just really trying to sit with it, because it's a lot of I feel like if I do online, I want to have quite a lot of library, if it's pre-recorded content in terms of like movement videos, like yoga, Pilates, all those things. So at the moment, I'm seeing if there's enough of an urge for people to want that, and if it feels right enough for me before I put the effort and time into it. But I have done like, I can always do sessions through Zoom. I've definitely done like, if there's a group of people that want a session, then I'll definitely come in and teach for them, or like women's circles, I've done that through Zoom before as well. So Zoom I like doing, because then you can feel the energy again, right? Like you can still play with that. So I like Zoom. Pre-recorded, I'm still sitting with and feeling into that. But my Instagram is just cushla.move, and then my website is cushlamove.com. And those are the main ways people can connect with me.
Beautiful. I love what you said there about Zoom, because something that I guess I've always had this opinion that needed to be in person, but I can still feel the energies just as much through Zoom. So I love that you said that. It's quite surprising really how that our intention of energy can just flow, and we can still really get a good read and a good sample. It's amazing. It's really amazing.
I know, it's so surprising, which is so nice for us. We like surprises, it's so nice and surprising. And I also like it, like especially teaching yoga through Zoom, you kind of feel like you're invited into their house. So as a teacher, you feel quite like, I feel quite special, like I'm like, oh, like there's your cat, or like cute, you've got this little setup or beautiful view, you know, like it's nice to have that more personal connection with the students. So I like that as well.
Yeah, I do it online Zoom yoga, and I have to admit, like, there'll be certain times where I'll sort of like put a candle on or something, and my yoga teacher will be like, oh, Annie, you've got, and it's like, now I'm sort of hearing it from what you're saying there, how it must feel for her to go, I'm welcomed into your house. And you have a deeper rapport with, I have a deeper rapport with her since I've been doing the onlines. So
it's really nice. Yeah, it feels like you get more of a connection with your student, which is cool.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Do you have anything that you would like to share to any other reflectors out there, or even 2-5, or anything that you just like to share with us?
Oh, yeah, good question. I would say you have permission to like take your time. I wish I had known that when I was younger. Like I really felt like, and it's quite hard for me to, sometimes that mentality will still come back, that if I don't take this opportunity now, I'll miss it. Or if I don't do it now, I'll miss it. Whereas I would just want to remind every reflector, like, you've got time and you can give yourself time, and allow yourself to be surprised by life, by not controlling everything. Like the more that you surrender to time and give yourself space, the more that the little surprises and magic will come. And that feels so good.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and so true, and so wise. Thank you so very much. I'm so glad that we finally got our time syncing, and we could have shared this beautiful space together. Appreciate you. I can't wait to keep in touch with you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.